Guys, thank you very much for listening to the Photography Bar podcast. If you enjoy the show, please make sure to support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and TikTok, as well as our Patreon, all of which will be linked in the show notes. Please leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast apps such as Spotify and Apple Podcast. And with all that said, let's head to the bar.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another fantastic edition of the Photography Bar podcast. The doors of the bar are once again open, and we are joined today by a friend of the show and special guest, Tommy Reynolds.
Great, thank you, Mark. Yes, we're doing this recording a few days before the forthcoming photography and video show, where Tommy is going to be doing a number of talks. Now, Tommy is a very well known and renowned international photographer and educator. He's based in Kent. He specialises in portraits and weddings, and he's been doing that now for the past 10 years. He's got a background in filmmaking, and he has also got a really impressive list of clients, including the National Lottery, Ben Sherman, Canon, Panasonic, Metro, and Psycho Entertainment. And so it's great to have Tommy on. And so here we go.
So yes, we are joined with Tommy Reynolds, and as you know, Tommy's been on the show a few times now. He's friend of the show, I like to call him. So yeah, and obviously we've gone through the blurb and everything. But Tommy, how you doing? You all right?
Mark, thanks so much, and Cam, thank you so much, both of you, for having me on. It's a pleasure to be back. Really happy to be here.
It's always good to have a chat with you, man. So yeah, it's great to have. But we wanted to talk something quite important, I think, today, which affects everyone. But we wanted to talk about it in the realms of photography as well, and that's about photographers, because we're all self-employed. Sort of how we are with our mental health and all that kind of stuff. And Cam, I believe you got some statistics about that, haven't you?
I have, yeah. There's a couple of paragraphs I wanted to sort of read, and just bear with me on this, because one of them is a little bit sort of long, but it will put it into context sort of quite well what we're actually trying to talk about here today. And this is from Amateur Photographer. So I'm just going to quote Amateur Photographer here. It says, "Gone are the days when mental health problems were assumed to beset only a troubled minority. As the latest statistics reveal, they are very common in the UK. The figures make a sobering read. According to the charity Mind, approximately 1 in 4 Britons will experience a mental health problem each year, while 1 in 6 people in England report anxiety and or depression in any given week. Given the United Kingdom's current population is just over 65 million, that's a lot of suffering. While this won't be a lot of news to readers, we're talking about amateur photography here, did you know that photography is now being seen as a valuable weapon in the battle against anxiety, depression, and other mental health disorders?" Now, what they talk about here is not about photographers, but they're talking about how photography can help people with mental health. So that's just a separate topic. Okay. But we're self-employed here. Myself, Mark, you, Tommy, and probably most of the photographers that are listening to this now are all self-employed photographers. And reading something else here, it says, "Being your own boss can be a liberating experience, but it also comes with certain pressures and anxieties. If you're not careful, over time, this can take a serious toll on your mental health. In some cases, it becomes a vicious circle. Work causes you stress, and this impacts your mental well-being. And according to recent research, as much as 25% of photographers struggle with mental health issues."
Yeah.
Okay.
Sobering.
So, yeah,
Very sobering.
It is. And Tommy, we're really pleased that you've come on, because this is something that you've faced and that you've been going through, and are very open to talking about it. And I think that's we can't thank you enough for saying that to us as a friend of the show and coming on and saying that you'd be happy to talk about it. So do you want to talk about your experience and what you've been through and where you're at?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for giving me the platform to speak. I've never really spoken about this openly until now, which is why I wanted to kind of brief Mark ahead of this interview if you were happy for me to be open. And so I'm hoping that this is going to be a therapeutic for everyone listening, because I think I give off a persona that I'm very cheeky, happy-go-lucky,
Hmm.
when the reality is, obviously that is a part of reality, but the reality is we all suffer with our own mental health. And for me, what was a turning point was, well, but in 2020, obviously we had the pandemic, but as well as that, I moved out of my parents' home and got my first home with my now wife. So we got married the year after, and then the year after that, I became a dad. So in three what felt like very quick years, we had the pandemic, moved out of my home, got married, got a mortgage, got a house, and got a child.
Lots happened in that time. Yeah.
Lots happened, and
Yeah.
I think now in hindsight, looking back, I think I I didn't I should have gone easier on myself, because I thought that within a few months I would adjust and I would be able to kind of get back into the swing of things. But
Mm.
when you've been freelancing like I had for 10 years, living with my parents with a space next door, so I had an annex built next door that's my studio, and that's my fortress of solitude for any Superman fans there.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That was
Yep.
my place. That's where I did most of my YouTube videos. And so when I became a dad, when I got married, the pandemic hit, all of this stuff happened for me, all in kind of a snowball. Lots of things changed in my life. Loads of things changed in my life. And I found it very hard to adjust to these new things, to this new routine. My mum always says there's a lot to be said about having a routine.
Yeah.
And when I first became a freelancer, I thought, this is great. I'll be able to go to the gym whenever I want, wake up whenever I want. And then soon
Yeah.
realizing that you need routine,
Mm.
and you certainly need it when you have the responsibilities of a mortgage, being a father and a husband. And as I said, for me, all of those three things came at such a short period of time. And so I had to take a I had to take a really big reevaluation of my work and my life. And it was a really it was a really tough time for me to readjust. I thought I would be able to adjust to these new things.
Mhm.
Definitely, I think out of the three, becoming a dad has been the biggest impact to me. So much so that I had to seek professional help. I use the app BetterHelp
Yep.
to
Yep.
to get some help in clarity
Mm.
in what I was thinking. I was convinced I was a bad dad. I was so convinced that I wasn't a great dad, and that was just having an impact on everything in my life. My confidence massively was hit, and then I wasn't confident in what I was doing for photography, and because I'd lost my confidence there, I felt like I'd lost my purpose. Photography is the one thing that I feel like I'm good at, and it's what I use to speak. It's how I
Mm.
communicate. As Cam said, we use photography as a means of a stress reliever, and all sorts of ways that we use photography to help us. And because I was I wasn't doing that as much, because I was readjusting to this new life and this new routine. I wasn't doing that thing that brought me so much creative fulfillment. So I felt like I'd lost a bit of myself, and losing that confidence as well just made me think, what's left for me? What do I need to do now?
Mm.
Um, and a big chunk of my productivity, not necessarily income, but
Yeah.
productivity, was YouTube. And so like I was saying there, so whilst it
Mm.
didn't make me a ton of money, I was very productive and had built a really nice subscriber count. I have just over 55,000 subscribers, and I, looking back now, became addicted to that endorphin rush
Yeah.
from posting a new video and having people saying how much they loved it or they enjoyed it,
Mm.
and realizing now that I was just chasing an ego boost, and I needed to reevaluate. This doesn't make me this doesn't make me that a ton of money. Why am I doing it? And the real reason I was doing it, not obviously I love to produce that content, but also part of the reason I was making that content was because I wanted the ego boost.
Yeah.
And it feels weird saying that out loud or being honest about that, but that was the reality. And I do believe that a lot of people are chasing that as well, maybe not even realizing that they're doing it for the ego boost. um Very brief tangent, because it's on my mind right now. One of the things that I really my pet peeves when people say online is, "What do you want to see from my content in the future?" And for me, I just want to scream at them and say, I want you to make whatever you want to make. Don't
Yeah.
ask me what you want, don't ask me what I want to see.
Mm,
I want to see what you want to make, because if
mm,
you're just being influenced by what I want you to make, you are just a puppet on a string,
yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
And that was me. That was me. I was
Mm,
that. I was that person asking people. And you've got to realize, why are you asking people what you want to see? And it must be because you want to fulfill them. Like, you're
mm,
supposed to be an influencer. Well, stop being influenced, because that's what
mm,
you're doing right now. And that was me. So now reevaluating. So I don't do YouTube as much now. I've now transitioned more into actually wedding photography. And
mm.
for a few various reasons. One obvious reason, it does pay better than what
Yeah.
I was doing. I started my career as a portrait photographer, then I started teaching during the pandemic, and now I do wedding photography. And the ironic thing is that the thing I started with 10 years ago, portraits,
Mm,
in reality is making me the least amount of money. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy it as much, but I'm just being honest.
yeah.
For me, I don't make as much money doing wedding photography as I do, portrait, as I do weddings. And I
Mm,
think what's nice about that is, you don't always necessarily have to be a master of one thing, because you never know, if you start picking up something else, it might just make you more money than the thing
yeah.
you think you're going to do with forever. And I think nowadays, with with the ease of making your own websites, you can have multiple corners of the internet. I'm a
Mm,
firm believer in saying that you can, it's okay to branch into various different genres and make money from those various different genres. But I do think the important thing is that those individual genres have their own place, have
mm,
their own websites, because it's a service, it's not a portfolio. If you're providing a service, then it needs to have those different corners of the internet, which is why I have 3 different websites that tailor to 3 different audiences, speaking to 3 different types of people.
yeah.
Bit of a tangent there. So trying to bringing it back. So what helped me? The app BetterHelp did, but
Mm,
I think also, probably more so than BetterHelp, was having a really nice bunch of friends around me and being open with them.
yeah.
To my surprise, I reached out to 2 of my closest friends and said that I was struggling, and to my surprise, both said, "Oh, I'm seeking therapy as well," and I had no idea. And
Mm,
it, I guess it just goes to show you that there's a lot more people in a similar situation than you just don't realize, because we constantly compare ourselves to our highlights reel online.
yeah.
And these 2 friends I thought were, um, I thought they were okay. I had no idea that they were seeking help. But in hindsight, it's actually made our friendship even closer, because now we have an understanding. But we were both kind of scared to admit that we were struggling and we needed help. But
It's almost a taboo, isn't it? Especially, I mean, I guess,
yes,
especially amongst men as well. I mean, I think,
British men.
yeah, well, yes, British men. Yeah, absolutely. I think women have that they're more open with each other. I think, aren't they, with their friends than blokes are. But it's interesting what you were saying. I mean, obviously, you had a lot of change within your life in that 3 year period, really, wasn't it? So, as you said, it was the pandemic, moving out, marriage, and the death. But one of the things I really got out from it, actually, it was probably the social media that was a big
Mm.
cause of it. But would that be that? And that those changes in life kind of almost highlighted that social media issue. Would that be a right sort of interpretation?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it was. Didn't think how much I was relying um, on that endorphin rush from comments, from posting new content. 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's odd because I think we all do it. I mean, we all have social media, and I don't like using social media on a personal level much. I mean, I have my personal accounts and stuff, but it's all business stuff. And yeah, you kind of you post something and you think, oh, I've only got like 10 likes on that, and it affects you, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
it's odd because it shouldn't really. Yeah, like you say, the most important thing is, are you having an income? are people wanting you to do the work for you? Do people call on you to be the specialist in wedding photography or portrait photography, whatever it is? That's the important thing, really, not how many likes you get on YouTube or
Yeah.
Facebook.
Of
And
course,
Tommy,
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And Tommy, I was going to say, how over the last 3 years, how did it affect you? Do you think on a day-to-day basis? Could people around you see that you were being affected by it? Was it something that you were really just dealing with on your own? But on a day-to-day basis, how was, what
How did it manifest, I guess?
what problems were you encountering, say, on a day-to-day basis? Was there anything in particular, or was it just a
Yeah.
number of different things happening at different times you can't really pinpoint?
I think one of the things that just stood out when you just saying that I can think of now is I had a rough kind of schedule when how often I would like in an ideal world to be posting content, and constantly every day thinking that's been pushed back a day, that's been pushed back another day, and then there was the anxiety of, when I think about it now, it seems silly, but the anxiety of, oh, that's another day missed. I was actually saying to myself, God, I need to post something now. Like I need to post something. It's just so ridiculous. It's
It's that
ridiculous.
addiction, isn't it?
It's
that
addictive.
addiction.
I
Yeah.
was 100% addicted. I was 100% addicted. And I know that the photography show's coming up. And again, just a very quick tangent again while it's on my mind. I will say now that when I would speak on stage prior to 18 months ago, the last one, before then, so I've been going to the show since 2016. So from 16 to say 19, when I spoke on stage, it was only for an ego boost. That's it. I can. It seems weird to admit that now, but that's when I look back and say, why was I speaking on that stage? It was just because I wanted people to say how much they enjoyed it. That's it. Now, when I speak on the stages, there's a different purpose. There's not an ulterior motive, but there might be some financial gain. There'll be a collaboration involved. There'll be this. I'm still giving audience the content, useful information, but there is more to it than that, than just simply, well, I'm just here, and then I hope you like it afterwards. That's it.
Yeah.
I make it, especially when you become a dad, your time is so valuable, so valuable. So you got to make every hour count. So why am I speaking on the stage? It's for these reasons, which we can go into and talk about if you want to talk about the stuff for this year. But yeah, so for day to day, it was just a build up of anxiety, constant anxiety. One of the things that my therapist said when I moved out was, she described as I described it earlier, my fortress of solitude, my little studio that was attached to my parents' house. She said it sounds like you're mourning. It sounds like you're mourning your creative space, because it was my safe space. It's where I made content. It's where I hung out. It's where I just kind of let off steam. And by kind of losing that, I didn't realize how much this space just meant to me.
Yeah,
But,
no, that makes sense.
but I am only a 30-minute drive away. I try and go there once a week, and also I can then see my family as well. But it's just, again, it's just the. I just thought I would be able to have adjusted to all these new changes, but I've got friends around me saying, no, these are all very, very big changes. You're not going to have adjusted to this overnight. And everyone's different. Everyone can adjust at their own speed. So when you see people struggling and then they get over it, that doesn't mean that you're going to get over it in the same amount of time. We all have our own journey. That's the important thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, like I said, talking about it is so important. And like I said, we're traditionally not particularly good at doing that. But so going forward now, how are you sort of keeping it in check, as it were? Those issues that have arisen. What are you doing now to keep that in check?
It's a good question, because I don't believe I'm 100% past it.
No, I don't think anyone ever is, to be honest. I think
No.
we all have that in us, and it's about, that's why I wanted to say keeping it in check rather than you conquering it. Do you know what I mean?
I think keeping it in check is checking in with friends. As you said, talking is so important. It's amazing how just having a conversation with a friend, even if it's just about everyday things, but it's just being able to get whatever's out of your head and out of your mouth, and realizing that your head wasn't quite as filled up as you thought it was. Like if you've got a big to-do list, like I know that I've got a friend at the moment. He's bless him, he's about to get married and he's about to become a dad and he's about to turn 30 all within 2 months. So and I'm trying to, and I realize everything I'm telling him is everything I should have told myself in the
Mm.
past. And I think that's what advice is. Advice is just advice you're giving yourself, but in the past.
Yeah.
And
I should
that's
have liked to have heard it when you're in that position, I guess. Yeah.
exactly. So you can imagine my friend is having lots of stress at the moment. So I'm trying to encourage him to talk to me as much as he can, or even just send me a voice note, or I'm just trying to call him up to say, "How you doing? Let's have a chat." And he has said that that has helped. So that's what so that's what's helping me is calling on a friend or a friend calling on me and just checking in with me and just having a chat about what's going on in my life right now, because it's every therapy session would start with so how you doing? I go, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
what we
then
do, isn't it? Yeah.
so British, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all right.
That's right. Yeah. Can I, Mark? You or I are in that situation of being self-employed as well, and we have that the work to deal with, and the ups and downs of that. We're talking to Tommy, but how about yourself? How do you how would you say would your mental health be? Do you do things to help yourself where you feel that at certain times things maybe aren't following, going the way that you necessarily want to? And I'm just being really honest here. I didn't
Yeah,
prompt you on, I was
well,
going to ask you this.
yeah, it's a strange one because we have been through a strange period. I mean, Tommy mentioned the pandemic, and that was
Mm,
a very strange period. It almost seems crazy now what we went through when you look back on it
Yeah.
and you think about what, we were locked in the house for, you know,
Literally, yeah.
for months. And it does seem kind of weird. So I became self-employed sort of, I think it was 2016. No, I can't remember, 2015, 2016, that sort of time. And it's odd. I do obviously you do have those additional stresses, don't you?
mm,
Because everything's on you, yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then on the flip side, I find it a little bit liberating as well because if I'm short of cash, like 1 month or something, I can go out and sort it. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Whereas when
Mm.
you're
yeah,
employed, well, if you're running out of money, there's nothing you can do. Unless maybe you can do
mm,
a bit of overtime here and there, maybe. But
mm,
Yeah.
generally,
I can totally
mm,
empathize with that, Mark.
yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
Like there's
yeah,
no better motivator to
absolutely, no.
get off
Get
your
out
bum
there,
to
yeah.
earn money if you haven't got that kind of employment to fall back on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's good. So I find that liberating. I think, do you know what? I think some of the issues I have is probably it's down to that horrible thing, social media. I know it. I know we come back to it, and I think that's why I noted what Tommy was saying about the YouTube and the ego boost and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I do like the cosplay stuff. Again, does hardly makes me any money. I just do it because I like it's a creative
mm,
outlet. What makes
mm,
me money is the family portraiture, which is
mm,
great. I can be creative with that. Weddings, you can be a bit creative with that, but generally, there
mm,
are the stock stuff you have to get, isn't there?
mm,
Yes.
And once you've done, once you've done it like 20, 30 times, you kind of like, so that's why I like doing this cosplay and fashiony type stuff because I can think of doing stuff in
mm,
different. But when I post stuff and like I said, I didn't get 10 likes, I get disappointed. I'm thinking I spent hours on this piece and and then I see someone's selfie getting 300,000 likes or whatever, and you just think, what the
mm,
hell? So that can affect you in certain respects. But I think it's good to have that creative outlet. I think that the way to think about that and the way I'm trying to think about that stuff is like, no, I'm posting this stuff and it's for me. And if other people don't like it, then that's their problem,
Yes.
mm,
not mine. And I think that's the thing to look at it. But you do see other photographers, especially sort of what I would say more the headline photographers who I feel like kind of maybe are further in their career than I am, and perhaps they're younger as well. And you kind of think, damn it, and that can affect me sometimes. I think, oh, have I made the wrong turn here? Have I made the wrong turn there? And
mm,
you do. I mean, I'm 43, so you kind of think, well, how 20 more years maybe of working life, not life,
yeah,
just get that one. And you think, should I be further on in my career? That is always something that bothers me. Should I be further on in my career? I don't have children, so I don't have that additional stress. I do have a mortgage and I am married. But Yeah, that's probably the only thing that kind of hits me sometimes. Like, oh, should I be doing something a bit more
Mm.
headliney? Do you know what I mean? If that
Yeah, no,
makes any sense.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Yeah, thanks, Mark. That was because I sort of put you on the spot there,
No, that's all right. How about you,
to
Cam?
say that. So, yeah, I mean, I would, I mean, I'm now 57, so I'm sort of that much further ahead, sort of coming towards, I'm sort of thinking of retirement, and thinking, right, where do I go from here? And I've managed to carve out my career from, more or less leaving school, college, and whatever, and stayed in the photography industry. And that's had its ups and downs. There's been the periods where I was employed and had jobs that weren't being well paid, but was getting the experience and going working for myself. And the hardest thing is, the easiest thing is to shoot. The hardest thing is to find the work. Is to and make it regular. And then that impact again of social media now, where there's so many people now that it's very easy for people to find a photographer. And there are people that are far, far more savvy and better than I am on social media because they've grown up with it. They don't know any different. Whereas we're trying to get our head round it. I don't like the attention. I don't use it socially, social media at all. For myself, I don't go out taking pictures with my wife and saying we're having a great time while we're having a meal or something like that. That's just not me. And I don't want to go down that route. But I am finding now that I've got to that point in my career that part of my career has now passed in a way. I've seen the peak of, I saw the good time of that. I saw the peak, but a younger generation is coming in and they're changing things. And that's always been the case. When I was young and I came in, I changed things because I know the guy that I worked for said that to me as well. He said he couldn't keep up anymore. And so that's going to go on with every single generation. And I think the biggest stress that I've had really over the years is making sure that I've had enough work coming in, and fortunately I have. There's always been the ups and downs. But as I've also got older, I would say, I think I would have thought by this time in my life, my life should be easier. But for personal reasons, it's become more and more difficult because it just seems that the older you get, the more issues there are to deal with. My son's 23 now, and he's become a parent. So I'm a granddad, which is fantastic, in the last few months. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that's changed the dynamic. That's changed my life. But that's also brought on its own stresses as well. Because if I'm going to be honest, I worry about my son naturally and his future and the age that he's at. He's become a parent at a young age, and he's got to cope with life and things, and that causes me natural worry. And that's the biggest worry that I have actually in my life, and you have to move on for that. But I am also very positive in what I try and do. So I'm very fortunate that we were talking about guys not getting together and chatting. We don't talk, but I've got a group of friends who I went to school with. So we've known each other now, apart from one, I've known each other now for over 40 years. Now we get together every single Tuesday night, and we get together about 9 o'clock in the evening. We also go over to one guy's house and we just sit, have a cup of tea. We all take along something, some cakes, some biscuits, some crisps or whatever. We play a little game. It's a dice game called Perudo, or Liar's Dice or something it's called. And that sounds a little bit sad, but really it's just us sitting around. It's just us sitting around a table and we just chat. Sometimes the chats are stupid. Now, I was there last night. I got there about 9:30 and I left there about, 11:30, 11:45 or something like that. And we were just chatting, and we had football on in the background because we're all sort of big football fans. So we had that on in the background, but we were chatting about all sorts of things. We were chatting about news stories. We just sort of said, how you doing? Have you had a good week? And those little conversations we're having more or less every single week. And I realized a few months ago how important that actually is, that close friendship that we've got, that we do all sort of genuinely care and we do look out for one another. So much so that one of my friends in that group was diagnosed with cancer a few months ago, with prostate cancer. Now he's had treatment for that and he's okay now. But when he broke it to us, it was an emotional time,
It's good to have that support.
But we value that friendship that we had. And talking about friends, and Tommy, what you said about having those friends is hugely important, because you realize everyone has got their own thing going on, but we don't openly talk about things unless we feel that we need to with this group. But one thing, and just on the final thing, one of the things I'm a firm believer in is that everything has a beginning and an end, whether it's a happy event or whether you're down or something. The feelings that you have do pass, if you, and and there's no time to that. If you're feeling really down, you could feel down for a few minutes, a few hours, months, years, and whatever. But that feeling goes. Then you have the highs of having a really good time somewhere. You're on a high. This is brilliant. This is great. I wish life was always like this. This is fantastic. That feeling will come to an end, and the next phase starts, and something else happens. So I'm a great believer in everything has a beginning and it has an end. And I think that sometimes, and I feel a little bit down. I do sometimes think this feeling will pass, and inevitably it does.
Yeah, I feel the same, Cam, because I think very similarly. Instead of beginning and end, I say to myself, this is just temporary, which is more or less the same sort of mentality as you were saying. Whether that's good or bad, it's just temporary. And again, back to my friend who's planning the wedding, having a baby and etc. He's worried about the finances. I said, look, this isn't a normal time of year for you. Of course, you don't get married and have a child within the month all the time. I just say, look, this is just temporary. And so that's so right, kind of the beginning and end thing. If you are going through any struggles, just remember that it is only temporary. There are things, there a natural progression in life, and having those friends around you are going to help turn that around for you. It really does. It's so lovely. As you were speaking there, Cam, I was just smiling at the thought that you have that lovely support group around you. I really wish that everyone has that, because whilst therapy was good for me, I felt it was more of a temporary fix. Now, that's just me personally. There was nothing quite as nice as having a group of friends who there's no kind of context that I need to kind of or give them loads of background, because they know all that. So there's a comfort in some of the friends I have. They know they've seen my journey for 10 years. So I don't feel like I need to backtrack, or if I explain something, then my friend might say, well, that might be because of this, because they know my life so well, unlike a therapist might not in that situation. So I think both have their places. I think professional help is great, but also having a support group of close friends is as good as professional help.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And having it, just talking to people, like you say, it's the best medicine for it, I guess.
100%. Yeah, it's a good way to word it. It's the best medicine.
Yeah.
I'm just going to finish off on this before we move on, in that Mark, we know that we've had messages from photographers saying that about the podcast, they feel like photographers, they're on their own, and they do feel that when they listen to us that they're actually in a conversation with somebody, and it's really helped them. And that's the biggest satisfaction that I get out of that I've had out of this podcast since we started doing it. But brilliant stuff. Okay, right, should we grab a drink?
Let's grab a drink, and then we'll get on to the next subject.
Got a drink now, and we are back again. Now, interesting article has come up in the last day or so on which I saw on BBC, and a number of people actually did forward it to me through social media.
I've seen loads of people forwarding this message to me.
It's been doing the rounds, and I think everyone, I think a lot of people here listening to this are going to be able to relate to this. And the BBC headline says, wedding photographers call on vicars to stop rude and aggressive behaviour. And this news story by Ian Aikman from BBC News says, rude and abusive behaviour by vicars towards wedding photographers needs to end, photographers say. A petition signed more than 900 times. Put my name on that. Let's get 901. Has described vicars' humiliating behaviour as a huge issue in the wedding industry. Photographer Rachel Roberts said she started it to reset the relationship. Vicars have told the BBC photographers should respect wedding ceremonies, but they said they're very sorry to hear of their bad experiences. And Miss Roberts said she wanted to start a public conversation about the relationship between photographers and clergy at church weddings. Right, come on then, Mark. Tommy, hit me with it.
Where do I start?
Yeah. And I have to say, it is just vicars, because I do a lot of Indian weddings, and they're completely cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Well, absolutely fine. When I'm doing if I do a consultation and they say it's a church wedding,
Church of England.
Yeah.
Let's throw it out there. It's
Church of England.
Church of England, right? It's not Roman Catholic. It's not the Catholic Church. It's
not the Greek Orthodox either. They're pretty cool.
Okay, let's just say it as it is. Okay, it's Church of England.
Nice caveat, Cam. Yeah, no. Well, do you know? So much so, this topic is so relatable to wedding photographers. So much so that in my wedding questionnaire there is a bit about is it a Church of England wedding, and if so, are there any restrictions which
Yeah.
I need to be aware of? The fact that that is in my questionnaire surely says
Yeah.
it all.
Mm.
And I'm sure that photographers listening to this now all have their own stories of with vicars. I certainly have mine.
Yeah.
I can share some if you wish.
Yeah, I think we need all. We're talking about talking, weren't we, in the last section? So maybe this is a good thing to get off our chest about these
That's
things.
right, yeah. Let me get my file. Let me get all my files out.
There was one there was one in particular. So I was the second shooter for this wedding. And I'll still tell the story because it's still relatable. So when I naturally as a second photographer, you're shadowing the groom usually. So I was at the church first before the main photographer and bride, obviously, and I. The vicar come up to me and said, just to let you know, there'll be no photography during the service. And I thought, oh, okay. And I thought to myself, oh, the main shooter never mentioned that. That's interesting. I'll just go up to the groom just to make sure. I said, just had a chat with the vicar. Apparently no photography during the service. Is that right? And he said, that's news to me. I went, I think you better have a chat with the vicar then. And then the main photographer came in, bride's waiting outside, everything's about to happen, and I said to the main photographer, I said, apparently no shooting during the service, vicar said. And she was like, oh no, I wasn't told that. So there was this big argument then amongst the groom and the groom's mum about, what do you mean no photography allowed? And apparently it was said, oh yeah, that would be fine the day before, or the rehearsal a few days before, but for some reason on this day the vicar had decided no photography allowed. In the end, it had transpired that we could shoot, but we had to stand at the very back of the room. We couldn't move at all. And I'm sure that people listening can be very familiar with this. There was another occasion where the vicar, so this was my own wedding, that I was the main shooter for this one. So the vicar was mic'd up, and during the service, I was behind bride and groom. So I was crossing over, not in front of them.
Yeah.
I was still way back. But the vicar during the service, what came down from the podium, come up to me and said, "Can you not move in front of them, please?" Whilst he was still mic'd, so everyone heard it. Everyone heard it. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. I think that's what it is. Is they I just feel that vicars don't show the photographers any respect at all. And in this article, it says it's their way or no way. And Mark, you and I remember last year we had an issue with a vicar who just wouldn't let us. He just again didn't want us to do anything.
We weren't allowed in their eye line. That was it. Yeah. So we were hiding behind pillars, like snipers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And the thing is what they forget is that we are there for the bride and groom. Okay. Right, those bride and groom's wedding photos or video that we're shooting, I'm not going to look at next year. I'm not going to look at in 5 years. I'm never going to look at their wedding pictures again. Okay, and I'm shooting those. We are shooting specifically for the bride and groom so that they have something that they can look back on. It's for them.
Yeah.
And
now, if I may, Cam,
and it's down to the the vicar and the vicars, in my opinion, aren't showing the bride and groom any respect. That's
no, I agree with that, and I think it kind of reminds me sort of the thing I was going to talk about with it was one of my first weddings. I'd done a few before, but this is the one, and again C of E, and and we're having this chat with this vicar about photography, and she was like, no, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, and I was like, right, okay, and I said to her, I said, look, we really want to capture these shots for the bride and groom. We'll do our very best not to be intrusive because we are respectful. I'm a respectful guy. But we've got to get the shots. And then I said, after all, it is the couple's day. Yes. To which the vicar returned to, it's not the couple's day, it's God's day. And I was like, well, I mean, no matter what you think about religion, and it's not a diss on religion, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to anywhere get anywhere near to winning or getting any concessions in this negotiation. Because if that's the mentality, then what can they do? What can I do? And that always remember that.
So in this BBC article, it says Reverend Anna Alls says, I'm going to put quite a lot of effort into planning a wedding, she said, and there's a lot going on and it's really stressful and you've got to be on top of everything. And but it's almost like saying that I've got a job to do and it's very stressful because I've planned this wedding. But what about the job respect? What about the respect that's going towards the photographers who've also got a job to do? And all you need to do is to work together. And I'm really lucky because 99.999% of the times I've managed to talk my way with the vicar to say, look, I promise you, I won't actually move. You won't hear me. You won't see me if I'm there. When they've said no photos, I've talked my way around it. Apart from that one, that's the first one I can remember for a long time where I've just not been able to, where he just wasn't having it at all. But I think things have to change. And the other thing is numbers of people going to churches is dropping. I mean, it says here, this is quite interesting because I was shocked at this. It says in 2016, 76% of marriages took place as civil ceremonies. That rose to a record 85.5% in 2020. Okay, so 85.5%.
Yeah, I mean, there was a pandemic kicking about, though. That might have skewed things a bit.
Yeah, but. Okay, but even 76 in 2016, if 76% of marriages took place as civil ceremonies. Now, since then, 2016, that number has risen. Right, so that 76% is definitely 80%. So when numbers are dwindling in churches, and and churches want to get more people in, then I think, and I'm talking about C of E here, they need to start sort of, not being the big I am, right?
Being a bit more inclusive, I think,
being a lot more inclusive, being a lot more respectful of everyone that has a job to do, and things have to change. And you know what, fair play to this photographer, Rachel Roberts, she was on BBC Breakfast. I didn't actually see it, but she talks about her petition, and we will get in touch with Rachel, see if we can get her on the show. And fair play to her for calling this out. And those 900 signatures, that would be way more than that. Yeah. But what will vicars do? I don't quite know what they're going to do. And
Tommy, do you think they would change at all with this? Do you think the vicars would change?
I think they need to take a lesson from other denominations, other religions.
Well, like you're saying, Cam, there were eye-watering statistics. Yeah, you're right, Mark. It could have been the fact that the COVID had a reason, but let's not forget that if by restricting photographers taking pictures, they are not getting pictures of their beautiful church that could otherwise then be used to promote, and other brides and grooms, potential bride and grooms, may see that. We're giving free advertising to the church, and I think that needs to come with some respect because we're potentially bringing the church more business. I guess in part it's a business, of course.
I guess because they do charge, don't they, for this? It's not free.
And if those stats are right, then they need all the help they can get at the moment.
Yeah, bride and grooms are paying to get married in the church, and within reason, they should be able to do. But it's not beyond sort of possibilities of saying, look, we want to have our day documented. We want a photographer. We want a photographer here, and there. We will talk with the photographer. We'll have dialogue with the photographer about what we would like, what the vicar would like. And you come to a compromise where ultimately the bride and groom are happy with what they will walk away with. As I said, I'm not going to look at those pictures that I shot of the bride and groom, years down the line. Once they're edited,
discussion is key. I think you're right. Discussion is key. Because I mean, I know on that article, I think one of the defenses was, because we've had photographers climbing the scaffolding and getting in between the bride. And I was like, I've never seen that. Those photographers are idiots if they're doing that. Because I mean, I wouldn't do that in a civil ceremony. I wouldn't do that yes, you're going to get some plonkers, I'm afraid, in the photography industry. Of course you do. But generally, photographers are just wanting to be as respectful. I hate the idea of people looking at me during a wedding ceremony, no matter what it is. So I'm trying to be as covert as possible. Because it's not about me. It's about what's going on.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on this is Dr. Rowan Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, admitted some vicars could be a complete pain and over-controlling with photographers. in an interview with the Sunday Times. But he said it was not unreasonable to ask photographers to be respectful.
No, of course
think
it's
that
not.
should be the other. I think it should be the other way. I think photographers should be saying to vicars, "Could you please be a bit more respectful?"
Well, I think it should be both ways, shouldn't it? Photographers,
Yes,
without
at
a
the end of the
shadow
day.
of a doubt, should be
Yeah, that's-
respectful. But the vicars need to go, look, this guy's got a job to do. He's given up his weekends to earn this money and do this thing,
Yeah,
We're all in
that's
it
right,
together. It's all about a team. And I think we have that with venues, when we speak to wedding coordinators at venues, maybe not at a church. And there's sometimes a little conflict about when the canapes come out and actually we want to get this done before, and all that kind of stuff. It's about dialogue. We're a team. All of us are a team. We might be different entities. We're the photographers, they're the caterers, whatever. But my opinion is we're all a team and we're all here to make this wedding run smoothly. No matter what area we're at, it could be the DJ, it could be whatever. We're all a team, and it's really the onus is on us to talk to each other and make sure everyone's happy and make sure the bride and groom get the best out of their day.
That's right. Because one of the first things I do when I go to a wedding, although I've got the schedule, if we're at civil ceremony, I'll go to the wedding, find the wedding coordinator, say, "Could you just confirm your timings that you've got? When do you want the couple? When a guest being called in for the start of the wedding breakfast? Right, okay, this is what I want to do. And I'm going to make sure that we're done on time. Could we do this?" And I find that they love having that conversation, so that we and I'll always say to them, "Look, if you need me to do anything, just let me know." So I'll try and go out of my way to try and say, "Look, I'm here to help. I need to do what I need to do. I'm aware of what you need to do. So let's just work together." And that, I think, and that always goes down well,
Tommy, do you have any tips to photographers about dealing with this sort of thing? And I mean, obviously vicars is what we're normally mainly talking about, but also the caterers and
I very briefly mentioned it about including something in my questionnaire, and I would just come back to that point very quickly, that it is a great idea to have it, because I have had an occasion where I've mentioned during the consultation that vicars can be demanding. I'll say so I've said to them, I would encourage you to go to your vicar and say, are there any restrictions? Because there was one occasion where they did that, was told about the restrictions, and moved their wedding ceremony to a different location because imposed on me that would prevent them getting the shots that they wanted. So I would say that as a golden tip. You mentioned it in your consultation, and it's unfortunately that we have to do this right now anyway, where we have to remind bride and groom, please speak with your vicar, because there may be restrictions. That's unfortunate. So that would be a definite tip. Mention it in your consultation, put it in the questionnaire as well, so that it encourages them to have that conversation, because like one of my couples, as I said, might just in fact move the entire ceremony.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fair play to them. Good for doing that. Guys, Tommy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
It's always a pleasure, man.
Good stuff. Yeah. And let's raise a fist to all the photographers that are going to be shooting in the church this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good luck, everyone.
All right. Yeah. Cheers, Tommy. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark, that was really good having Tommy on as a guest. He's been on the show now a few times.
Yeah, he's always good to have on. It's always going to be a good episode when he's on.
And it was something actually that the topics that we spoke about were, I think the three of us were very honest, and I'm sorry I put you on the spot again.
Don't worry. No, it's
okay. But it just felt the way the conversation was going, and as I'm going to be honest to the listeners out there, we could very easily have cut something there as well, but we've not. We're not going to, because we have been open and honest about this. And I'd like to think that anyone out there that's listening, that you can sort of contact us. There are, if you just need a little bit of advice, I know Tommy used the app that he mentioned. We'll put links out to that. That's right, and so there are a lot of groups out there where people can talk. But I think the biggest thing for photographers, the way I see it, is a lot of freelancers spend a lot of time on their own in the week. So there's a lot of time either working from home, or they might have an office somewhere. There's a lot of time that's spent on their own. Reach out, have a weekly chat with somebody. I mean, like the podcast. So Mark, you and I, it's a weekly chat.
It is.
Whenever we do a show, get together with another photographer where you guys, okay, you're not recording a podcast, but you're just getting together and just having a little chat. little things like that can make a big difference. And because I am aware of some photographers that I do know that do have that struggle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as you say, and the thing is as well, it's something for us all to remember, because I know I mentioned when you asked me about that, I'm always thinking about what other photographers are doing. Their life seems to be a lot better than mine, and they seem to be they seem to have it all or get it. And I would say Tommy is one of those people where you think, yeah, he's got it, man. His life's sorted. He does exude this, like he said himself, he has this sort of outward sort of cheeky chappy, very smiley, all that kind of stuff. And he's very much like that when we're on there. But even people like Tommy have, these sort of inner demons, is that the word? But they're battling something. And that is also quite, I guess, so bring in the fact that, well, if Tommy can have these issues, then I guess it's fine for me to have these issues, but also, get the help, speak to people. I think that was the biggest thing, wasn't it? I think that's the biggest takeaway from it, was talk to people, and friends are probably the best, I would say. I'd say friends better than family in my opinion. I mean, people can have different opinions on that.
The thing, like with the podcast, we talk about social media, where again Tommy was really honest in the sense that getting likes and having that ego boost, that type of thing. Now I know that, and our podcast is it's a podcast. Okay, that's how I view it. It's our podcast is a podcast. It's for people to listen to. To me, that's a part of social media, and there is this pressure that because we do this podcast, we ought to have this huge social media following and everything. But Mark and I are also busy working photographers. Okay, we run our own businesses, and in between that, we have been putting this content out since the end of 2019. Okay, we've kept this podcast going. That's been the priority. The priority hasn't been to have this huge following on social media. That's a separate thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we're trying to do that now a bit, but
we are. But what I'm saying is that it's very easy to sort of say, okay, well, our social media following could be far better, but of course it is. But that takes a lot of time and effort.
But also, what I would just to jump in there, I think again, what Tommy was saying makes absolute sense. Is the fact that the photography bar doesn't. I mean, it's not. It makes us a bit of money, but not lots, and. I think that was the main takeaway from it. It's like, why are you spending all your effort? I mean, we do this because we enjoy doing it, and it's a bit of fun. But what Tommy was saying, so his YouTube stuff, it doesn't make him that much money. Actually, where I'm making my money is my weddings. Why am I spending so much time doing the YouTube stuff? Because of this, because it gives me that ego boost, and it's but actually, it's not really making any money. So why am I doing it? And it is that the devil that is social media, and this is, I mean. Yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Whereas I think with us, with the podcast, we want to grow it, and there's a reason behind it, I guess, because it will then open the doors for us to do other things with the podcast. But yeah, it's interesting, and it just goes to show that anyone can have these inner issues, and if you do, the best thing to do is to talk about it, to get it out there. And evaluate your life in an honest way, I guess. Don't be too hard on yourself, because I think that was an element of what Tommy was saying. Is he a good dad and all this kind of thing? And it was a big transition that he had over the past those 3 years. Of course, it gets on top, and again, society demands you need to rise above it and be awesome at it. But you're going to find it hard. First time dad. I mean, I'm not a dad. You are, Cam. So you must know that when you're a first time dad, there's going to be a lot of things you're going to find incredibly difficult to get your head round, and then like you said, with the extra worries that you now have, you're not just worrying about yourself and your wife, you're worrying now about your kid, and in your case now your grandchild. Of course it does all that, but that is life, and that is normal to feel like that, guys, and I think that's the a very important thing to think about.
Yeah, that's right. And I think and you've hit the nail on the head. Last thing I'm going to say on that is also that I think when my son was born, yes, social media was there, but it was just there on the edge. It was just starting. Now it's exploded so much, and social media puts a huge amount of pressure on everyone unnecessarily, and everyone I think is impacted by it. Yes, social media is great, but I was going to say, but I'd do without it, but then we wouldn't have the podcast, would we?
Well,
So-
this is very true. It's very true. And I would say, though, I think we're all pretty much unanimous about the vicars, which I thought was quite funny.
Oh.
I mean, but
it's someone had to say it.
I'm
And,
just
you
going to
know,
say there are probably some very good vicars out there.
I've seen
going to
them.
throw
Yeah.
that one out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't really
Yeah.
talk that much. It's like anything. You always talk about the things that that annoy you or the bad things. It's always you always remember the complaints rather than the good things. But hopefully C of E will wake up and go, actually, we need to be a bit more liberal about this and just a bit more
respectful of the bride and groom and of the photographers.
Yes.
What it comes down to.
Yes. And also just a bit more open to discussion, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But also a warning to those photographers who like climbing scaffolding in churches, just don't do that, man.
Yeah, I mean, as photographers, I mean, don't wander around the church, don't move around, don't do those stupid things, because you know, I always think that I'm there to document something, and I want to document it and I want to do it right. I want to do the best job, but I'm not there to create in the church during the ceremony pieces of art.
No,
okay,
you're there to document.
Yeah,
great. Look at the lighting, look at the moment, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But
Yeah.
you know, to get extreme angles and I think one of them was the one photographer stood between the vicar and the bride and groom, and it's like, no, don't do that.
Don't do. Yeah, they're the things as photographers that we shouldn't be doing. Okay,
Yeah.
You should just be in a church. Once you get yourself in one position, you shouldn't need to move from that position, right? You know, and if you've got a second shooter with you, even better. You might get two people to the front and just to the side. You've got everything you need. If you can only get one, then you've got one who's shooting from the back, and that's it. That's all you need. You don't need to move. So photographers also need to just rein it in a little bit. Those photographers that don't know what they're doing, they just need to sort of say, we're not there to run around and we've got every single thing. There are key moments that you just want to get, and that's maybe exchange of rings, maybe walking in, the exchange of rings, the kiss, and walking out. You could take one shot of each, and you've got 4 amazing shots. That's all you need to do. You don't need to do all the crazy angle stuff and everything, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyway, with that, we need to shout out to our patrons.
Yep, Carl Sherville.
Yep. Hello, Carl. How you doing? We've also got Rob Percy. We've also got Amara Zainab, and we've also got Nick Payne. So thank you very much for your support, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening again, and we will see you next time.
Certainly shall. Bye for now.